Hello and welcome to the first Tuesday checklist of 2020, which from now on will be on a Wednesday. You see, we shuffled the schedule around, but we really like the name, unless you can think of a better one, in which case stick it in the comments. This week, in the spirit of the new year, we're looking ahead to the games we're most excited for coming up in the next 12 months, our most wanted games of 2020. Tell us yours in the comments, please, but not until you stopped what you're doing and paid complete attention to me, explaining why this particular game is the correct choice.
So the game that I am most looking forward to, most excited about for 2020, God, time just threw away from me like a vertiginous, that's the year that it is now, good, is The Last of Us Part 2. I can't see past it in terms of stuff which is really exciting on PlayStation 4 next year. Maybe because I've played it, I don't know. I don't know if I've mentioned that on the channel before. But so I think, The Last of Us was a game which I think we've spoken about on Tuesday's Checklist. I have spoken about previously on Tuesday's Checklist. Really, I think PlayStation 3 was really good, that era of gaming. Like third-person action adventures were just its thing. And then they became more and more sophisticated. If you go back, there's some stuff, like 2009-10, Uncharted had already come out, but you were still getting games which are probably less sophisticated, and they were much more about just like a hero doing like hero stuff with big arms. And then The Last of Us really kind of solidified the fact that you could do within that genre, within that kind of type of game, you could do really interesting and unusual stuff. You could tell different sorts of stories. And it can be very, very serious. It's a very different sort of take on video games, which have been for a long time more lightweight and more entertaining. But in sitting down and playing The Last of Us Part 2, the kind of attention to detail that kind of comes out of every moment of it. The first hour or so that we played, you're riding a horse through the snow as Ellie with a friend. And there's just like this incredible space for them to just interact as people. And Naughty Dog, the studio behind the game, are renowned for kind of pioneering performance within games. And I think that what that lends up with is get to know these people and these characters in a way that you just don't in other games. Their performance in these games is just better. I think they are the best at doing it. Just the attention to detail. And I think I said before that in playing The Last of Us Part 2, I was kind of like, yeah, this is pretty much like the other one, but like it's newer and it looks a bit better, and sure, the snow's good. And then we went back and played Last of Us Remastered, and it was obviously a completely different generation of game, even though it had been remastered, and you could just see how much more sophisticated The Last of Us Part 2 was. In terms of, the example, I sat down with one of the guys from Naughty Dog and just talked to him about, now you can go prone as Ellie, and I was like, so that's good, isn't it? You can go, because before you were just around, now you can lie down, and he was like, there's so much, like, when you make a decision in a game which is trying to be as realistic as The Last of Us, about like going prone. What that means is you have to think of all the animations from every, not just so walking or running, all of them have different animations to then get Ellie down to the ground. And then when you're on the ground, because you're in third person view, not first person, you have to still be able to aim, because you can do that in real life. So then you've got all the animations of someone realistically aiming from the ground, which means not just going prone, but also on your back, supine, that's the word for it. So, and revolving all the way around. And then, and I was the guy going, lying down's good in your game, isn't it? And he was like, here's how many man hours that took to perfect and make brilliant. And you just don't notice it when you're playing because it feels extremely natural, but it does open up a ton of different, I think it solidifies that world, and being able to go supine is the reason that I am most excited about The Last of Us Part 2 next year. It's going to be brilliant. You can lie on your back and shoot stuff, but it's also, I think, going to have probably the best story that we're going to see on a PlayStation game next year. I'm incredibly invested in those characters still, years and years later. I want to see them. I mean, potential spoiler, but it was in the last trailer. Both of those characters are back, which I am very, very glad about. I wanted to see Joel, although Joel's like a million years old now at this point, right? And I'm just very excited to see what, every time Naughty Dog release a game, it's the event of the year. So that's what it's going to be in 2020.
So, the game I am most looking forward to in 2020 is... Can anyone guess what it is?
God, what could it be? I mean, it can't be a remake of an old game. That would be...
No, that would be madness.
That would be madness. What?
Yeah.
Only forwards.
Yeah, it is that though. I'm sure everyone who's watched the channel knows what I'm going to say. It's Final Fantasy 7 Remake, obviously. And I can't talk about anything else. I know I've talked about this so many times on the channel, but it is because, and I genuinely believe this is the most excited I've ever been for any game in my entire life. Like, I cannot describe to you how excited I am about this game. The only time that comes close is when Final Fantasy IX came out, and I was literally just couldn't sleep the night before and was like skipping down to Electronics Boutique on the morning that it came out. And I genuinely thought that was a feeling that I didn't get anymore simply because I'm not a child anymore. I didn't think I could get that level of kind of childish excitement. But it turns out you can if there's a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake. And every time I see anything on Final Fantasy VII Remake, it sort of blows my mind how it's just everything that we've asked for. Everyone who wanted a remake of Final Fantasy VII, you know, before they announced it, it was what everyone wanted for ages, like, remake Final Fantasy VII? Maybe? And then they announced it at E3, and I was like, no way, they've actually done it. And everything they reveal about it is just like, they're actually doing that. You can see materia. They're actually doing the whole Don Corneo bit with the dressing up and getting all the items, and Dave doesn't know what I'm talking about.
No idea.
It's so
no
good.
Idea. I'm glad they're doing it though.
It's really, everything about it looks amazing. The combat feels like the perfect mix of like a modern action game married to the traditional sort of battle system that was so successful in 1997. If anything, it's got even more strategic elements than the old one. Having played the demo and fought the Scorpion Sentinel in the original Final Fantasy VII, I mean, you fought it, Dave, when you played the original on stream.
Yeah.
You sort of just stand there and hit it in the original game, and you have to stop hitting it when it brings its tail up because it counterattacks. But that's all you really have to think about. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's loads to be thinking about. You've got to stagger it, and you've got to switch between Cloud and Barret when it leaps up on the wall, so only Barret can hit it because it's a bit further away. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like a game of chess, you know. But in terms of, for people who were concerned that Final Fantasy VII Remake was just going to be a hack and slash game because it was real time, I think those concerns have been completely allayed by the fact that, you know, there's a lot to think about in the combat. It's cinematic and beautiful to look at, whilst also it has that tactical depth that RPG fans are going to love. Plus everything it looks absolutely beautiful. They seem to have nailed all the voice acting, and everything that I'm seeing in the game is sort of like exactly what I had in my head when I played it back in 1997. Like, back in those days, your mind would do most of the work because obviously the technological state of PS1 couldn't, you know, the characters were little tiny, it had text instead of voice acting, so a lot of it you had to imagine, and your brain and your mind was doing most of the work, which I think is where a lot of the magic of these games come from. So they could have quite easily got that very wrong, but everything I'm seeing is like, yes, you've got it right, you've nailed it, and it's got so many of the people who worked on the original Final Fantasy VII working on it, plus a whole new, fresh generation of developers who were all fans of the original when it came out, and I think that love for the original is really apparent in everything that I've seen, and it just makes me insanely excited, like insanely excited.
I'm very excited for multiple games in 2020. I think 2020 is going to be a very good year, especially for my little gaming head. Many games. And Rob has sadly already taken one, but it's completely fair. I'm just like, yeah, Rob did his entry first, that's fine. I've got backups. So, first of all, I just want to give an honourable mention to Resident Evil 3, the remake, which has recently been announced at State of Play. My God, I'm so excited. I'm gonna have Nemesis going stars, like in full-on remake. I don't know if they're gonna use the original or if they're gonna remake the voice. I'm just very excited even to see that bit alone. But my entry for this Tuesday checklist has to be Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon. I am unbelievably excited for this game, so excited. When it was first announced, I was already like, fantastic, like we're gonna have more Yakuza with gorgeous graphics and this new engine that we've seen. I believe it's the same engine that they used in Kiwami 2 and Yakuza 6. It's a new character, so obviously we've been following Kiryu this whole time, and now it's like, oh, a new character, Ichiban, what's he gonna be doing? It's kind of got the same thing of he's gone to jail for I believe around 10 years and he's come out and it's just like they're trying now to kill him, so there's a whole element of mystery. I think the biggest difference is definitely the gameplay style. So obviously Yakuza is very famous for having fantastic combat and the whole, I believe it still has the open world, but just running around, getting into thugs and then you're just punching them away in your different fighting styles. Whereas now, I mean, the trailers keep on saying, oh, it's just like in Dragon Quest. They have done a full-on RPG approach, so it's taken a more traditional approach, whereas like, you know, the combat button pressing. I don't really know how to call it. But even so, I know a lot of people have been like, oh, it's taken more of an RPG element, I'm not sure, but it looks fantastic. You've got lobsters that you can summon, and then it starts raining lobsters from the sky, and then it has the same comedic, over-dramatic sort of, yeah, like cinematics to your combat and everything. And
I feel like I know less about the game now than
I
we
know. I just like the fact that you said traditional RPG elements, quickly followed by raining lobsters.
I mean, you've got to point out the key things in a traditional RPG. And even just, it just looks so over the top and fantastic. And there was even a part in the trailer where a character eats a bit of bread. I believe it's Ichiban in jail. It's the best looking bread I've seen.
Better than the burger bun in Resident Evil 2?
Well, I mean, that's very hard for the burger in Resident Evil 2. That's the best burger, but this is the best bit of bread I've seen in a game. It is fantastic. And recently they're slowly announcing more and more things in Japan, and we've seen what Kiryu looks like and what Majima looks like in the game now. The fact that Kiryu's even in Yakuza 7, I'm like, yes! Because I've not played Yakuza 6, so I don't know how his story ends. I presumed that he died, but now I'm like,
Probably not.
but now I'm like, he's not dead! And I know some people be like, oh, it's a spoiler, but I'm like, he's not dead! I love you, Kiryu, and I love you, Majima! But if you can't tell, yeah, I'm just gushing about this game. It looks fantastic. I can't wait for more Yakuza action, and just give me all the raining lobsters and the ball on a chain, wrecking ball combat. That's in a trailer as well at one point. It just looks amazing. It looks theatric and over the top, and the story looks so good, and I'm just like, oh, I wish I could have it right now. I can't wait to play it. It's going to be so good.
This was really hard. Really, really hard. I kept thinking I had an idea, and then I would look at a big list and I was just destroyed. So I'm doing some real quick shout outs at the beginning, which is Rainbow Six Quarantine, really excited about that. Doom Eternal, really excited about that. Cyberpunk, Marvel's Avengers, really excited about that. But the game I've chosen is possibly a little bit optimistic, because it is Overwatch 2.
This is, yeah.
So I actually don't think I've talked about this too much on the channel, maybe once, but I'm like an insane Overwatch fan. In all the run-up, because obviously it was like trailed and teased for ages and ages and ages before it came out, I remember thinking like, no. Like when I saw it, I thought, this is gonna be insane. I didn't get it straight away. I was like, gonna wait. And then they had a free play weekend. I think 2 hours into the free play weekend had bought it. So I was like, yeah, okay, here we go. And then I proceeded to just make that my entire life for like quite a long time. So I played Overwatch every single day, insanely competitively. I would like just stop being friends with people if they weren't good enough. I was like, I don't have time for you. And so I love Overwatch. I love the story, I love the idea of it, I love the characters, and we've had rumours of Overwatch 2 for ages, because one of the things we really wanted in the Overwatch community was updates to the story, because they started off with this amazing story, and then they did lots of filling in what had happened before it, and we were like, that's great, but I want to know what's happening now, because it was like a big dramatic moment. People have always been begging kind of for a story mode to be added to Overwatch, so that you can kind of play through some of the things that happen, which you can do. Some of the levels are designed to tell you stories, and obviously like big events tell you stories. But you know, we wanted to actually play through some of the like legendary missions we've heard about. And then there started to be rumours in Overwatch 2, but we'd always assumed they would just add a story mode. So obviously at BlizzCon when they were like, it's Overwatch 2, we all pretty much lost our mind. Overwatch 2 is going to be really different as well. So it's not just a new kind of updated version of Overwatch. This is like a completely different Overwatch that will intersect with the original game. So this time you're going to be playing co-op story missions. So it's not just single player, which I quite like, because I think for me, the team element is something I've always really loved about Overwatch. So you'll be playing through story missions with a team, which makes sense because, you know, Overwatch is literally a team. And then it's also going to have PvP competitive, but that will in some way match up with original Overwatch. You'll be playing on some of those maps, they'll be playing on some of your maps. And so basically what it's doing is just expanding the world of Overwatch, which I am so excited about. And you know, I think there are points in your life where you just really love a game, and then you have to play other things, particularly when you have the job where you do, and you just have to play other things, and it kind of falls. God. Yeah, I know. It's so hard. But it just kind of falls by the wayside, and you can't just spend every day playing like 6 hours of Overwatch if maybe that's what you were doing. And for me, it was just a really special time. I met loads of friends. It's one of those games I'm really, like, it was such a special time for me. I made a little YouTube show. I just literally was completely in love with that world and the people, because it was a really nice FPS world, which, you know, they're not always that nice. And so it was just a kind of a shining light of what online kind of FPS could be. And so I'm really excited to kind of fall back into it. It's made me realise, oh God, I love Overwatch and I love that world. And I can't wait to just have a whole new section of it to explore. So yeah, Blizzard 2020, Overwatch 2, yeah, totally in.
It's a good year, isn't it? It's a big, exciting year. And really, there's a lot of the games I'm excited about, but I couldn't look past Cyberpunk 2077. I just couldn't. I tried. I did try. And just mad that it's here, really, because I was thinking the other day about the exciting time when PS4 had been announced but hadn't yet been released. We were making lots of videos about it in the run-up, and one of the videos we made was a compilation of every game that had been announced for PS4, which I made, and I remember that was the first time I came into contact with Cyberpunk 2077. They did like a fairly short CG trailer of this kind of android woman.
She's on the shelf behind you, Dave.
She's on the shelf behind me, kneeling down, and she gets shot. And I was just like fascinated. I was just like, what is this? And obviously knew it was CD Projekt making it. It was very exciting. But also The Witcher 3 hadn't come out yet, and I hadn't played any of the other games, so it wasn't, that was like, I think these guys are pretty good. It was very interesting. I'm looking forward to this game. When will it come out? Fast forward, what's it been? Like 6 years or something, and it will be 7 years, I suppose, when Cyberpunk 2077 finally comes out, and it's just an insane proposition. It looks like unbelievable immersive world. I mean, like, surely probably one of the best makers of open worlds now, following Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, turning their hand to this completely different world. I think that's what's very exciting as well, is it's not just, it's not another fantasy world, which we know that they've got stock in. Instead of swords and magic, it's tech and guns and hacking. I can't wait to see how they apply everything they learnt working on The Witcher to Cyberpunk 2077. And from a personal point of view as well, I feel very, very excited to get into that world, because we did our Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop RPG on the channel, which you should watch if you haven't watched. It's amazing, and I really feel
like that whenever you get the chance.
I think
every stream,
I think it's
every
fantastic.
Video.
Are you not? Or do you not recommend it?
Oh no, I do. I genuinely think it's one of, if not the best things on the channel.
There you go.
Apart from the Friday features.
So exactly, and for whatever reason, that was very immersive to take part in, and I just feel slightly connected to that world. And even though our characters, were completely made up by us, and the story was completely made up by Chris.
Are you going to play as Jimmy Mutiny?
Well, I was thinking, I've got to play as Jimmy Mutiny, right, as much as I can. Are you going to play as MJ Kepahuchi?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to create him.
And other people can too. That's the exciting thing. So it's really hard to sum up the excitement for Cyberpunk 2077. I think it's just it's one of those amazing games that seems to have been in development for forever and been exciting for forever, and I kind of just put it out of my mind, because waiting for it was, is quite painful. If you spend time thinking about it and waiting for it, it will never come. It's like a watch pot. But now it is coming. It's got a release date. It's months away, and we're going to finally get to see and play for ourselves in this amazing world they've created. I think it's just insane, and 2020 is going to be amazing.
Can we play it with you, El? It sounds like...
No, did you see that pause?
No, I mean, you can play it with me. It's whether you can continue playing it with me.
Cruel but wise, El. Cruel but wise. We hope you're as excited about 2020 as we are. Put your most wanted game of the year in the comments. Give us a like if you enjoyed this video, and join us again next week for another Tuesday checklist.
For the players.